guys, welcome to a brand new Sunday story, and I'm saying this all over again because I recorded all of this and I spoke and then my camera died and it didn't save for some reason and I lost everything I was talking about, which I was going on for like 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, at least that wasn't a 20-minute video. I probably would have been pissed off, but I'm gonna have to repeat myself. So, what was I saying in the last one? I started off with, it's come to my attention that I didn't speak enough about my childhood growing up friends, because a lot of people think that I had like all these friends and stuff, when the truth is I was the exact opposite. Like, I think growing up and finding yourself when you get to like 3rd or 4th grade and you start to realize that some people are cool and some people are deemed not, and I was deemed not, and I had one real friend named Emily in kindergarten, and then growing up I had a lot of friends who were fake and we only really talked in school and they weren't really true friends. So I didn't really get to have that experience that a lot of people did in elementary, middle, or high school of going to school with friends who were actually your real friends. I didn't get to have that. So the topic of today's video is going to be friendship, and if you have any similar experiences to me or you know somebody that has, you can leave your experiences in the comments below. I always do read the comments, so it'd be, not, I don't want to say funny to read because obviously that was painful to go through, I imagine. Not I imagine it did, but I guess, entertaining to read. So anyway, so as I said, I only really had that one friend growing up, and the reason I was deemed uncool and the reason that people didn't want to get to know me and to talk to me and they much preferred to tease me and make fun of me was not because of my personality, was not because of my looks, wasn't because of I wasn't funny or I was dumb or I was poor or anything like that. The reason was my height. And it sounds stupid now that I look back on it, and I can see why my parents thought it was stupid and they thought I was like, there had to be something else I was doing wrong, but there wasn't. They would call me, midget and shorty and stuff, and I know people watching this video are probably going to be like, well, Damien, that's not really something to, get upset about. I mean, lots of other people have other things that they were picked on for, such as their weight and such as their intelligence. And you know what? I might agree with you on that, but trust me, these kids treated it as if being short was the plague. Like, because I was very, very short for my age and very underdeveloped and very young for my age, they just would rather pick on me than actually be my friends. So that's why a lot of people would rather, do that stuff. So even to this day, I'm still short. I'm barely reaching 5 feet. I like to call myself 5 feet, but in truth, I'm probably 4'11 and a half, and I just don't tell anybody that. But when I was younger, I was even worse, like barely reaching to 4 feet and stuff. But anyway. Also, I've been underweight like all my life, so there's that. But anyways, so I guess growing up, I tried to talk to people, but we didn't really become true friends. I didn't know what true friends were because they would always gravitate towards other people, whether they were cool or whether they just clicked better or something. And I had people like acquaintances to talk to, but it wasn't really, like that. And on top of all that, the one friend that I did have, the one true friend, Emily, was never in my class. She was in my class once in kindergarten, and after that, and I was in the same school for elementary and middle school, never in my class. After that, every single year, for some reason, was just never in my class. And then we ended up going to different high schools, so it didn't matter anyway. 2nd grade came and I had some acquaintances, didn't really know any friends. I met this girl who I've talked about in other videos before. I think the Serena one, maybe other ones, I'm not really sure. Mariah. I met her in 2nd grade, and she was obviously very popular, stuff like that, so that was another case of what I'm talking about. In 3rd grade, Christine transferred, and she was really nice, and she was a really true, good friend, but she preferred other people over me. And I think that sucked a lot, because in 3rd grade, I was the first one to meet her, obviously, so we were like, I guess you could say best friends, but as she met other people, she preferred them, and I was kind of used to that. I still am kind of used to that, so whatever. And so growing up, and then elementary, which is pre-K to for 5th grade, and then middle school is 6th to 8th. And elementary, I guess it didn't really bother me as much. Didn't really bother me as much because as long as I had a lot of acquaintances to talk to, it kind of made me feel like I had a lot of friends, even though I think I subconsciously knew that wasn't the case. So the teasing and the bullying was, during that time period over my height. I'll never forget the one day that I think I ruined, some shot at popularity for myself. There were these 3 boys, and I'm not going to mention their names. I don't know why, I just don't want to. and they were, I guess, considered hot shit in that time. And one of them asked me what the time was. Now, me being a fucking idiot, obviously I'm not going to reply the time because that'd be too expected, that'd be too normal of me. So instead, I look at them with a serious like smile on my face, like I really genuinely was proud of myself for this joke, like I really genuinely thought I was funny. And I was like, time for you to get a watch. Like just like that, like as if I thought that the whole classroom was gonna burst into laughter. But they didn't. I mean, they did, but at me, because he looked at me with this serious ass look on his face and he was like, you're really fucking stupid, you're not funny. Like just like that. And then they started laughing at me and that made things worse. And they like to pick on me because I was short, and dorky, whatever, okay. And a lot of drama happened in 4th grade, you know, because nobody liked me in a friend's way or in a romantic sense. I was just kind of what you do because I had friends who had all these friends and boys and girls and stuff like that. And so then I went to junior high and things seemed to get worse. Like, I mean, if we put aside the whole 7th grade drama with Serena and we just focus on 6th and 8th grade, or even 7th grade before she came, because I think she came like January, February or something like that. On and off, I wasn't friends with my friend group. And my friend group was like Mariah and Rebecca and Christine and other people. I'm shocked I can remember everybody's name in my junior high classes, but I can. So even if it looks like I don't actually remember the names, I do. I just am debating whether I want to give them out or not. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm not talking trash about anybody. I'm telling the truth. And I would be shocked if anybody in my junior high or elementary classes actually care about what I'm saying right now. Like, I'd be shocked if I went into my inbox and be like, why are you talking about me in this video in 8th grade? Like, do you really fucking care? Because I don't talk about what I did in those classes. I don't give a shit. So I was really on and off friends with them because sometimes they would decide I wasn't cool enough and sometimes they would decide I was cool enough. And I think because I allowed myself to get pushed over so much because I wanted to have people to talk to. So I allowed myself to get pushed time and time again so much that they learned that they could walk all over me and that I would still be there if they needed advice or if they needed money or if they needed something to talk to. Because I was a huge pushover back then, and I was easily forgiving and stuff like that. And you can really trick me easily. I was very, very loyal. There was this one time that sticks out in my head when I wanted to plan a movies trip with me and now I'm debating whether I want to give out the names again, but I don't think it really matters. I don't think anybody's going to watch this, so I'm just going to tell the story. So I planned a movies trip with me, Mariah, Rebecca, Michael, which by the way, Michael, this kid, right? Mariah and Rebecca, like, they fought over him and they like fucking loved him. Like, I'm pretty sure they would hump his dick if given the chance. And I didn't. I wasn't into him like that. I think even Christine was at some point. So I was just like cool beans because obviously, you know, I'm not, you know. So I invited him because he was in our little friend group and obviously I wasn't going to be able to get away from them. And on top of that, I thought that if he came, there was a definite chance that the other two would also. So I invited them three. I think I invited Christine and I invited Sadie too. And Sadie was, she had friends, but like she wasn't like, I guess, you know, popular, like kind of like me, except better off because she did have real friends. But moving on. So I invited, you know, I want to go to the movies, I want to see the Hunger Games. This was the first Hunger Games movie and I don't even remember which grade this was in, but I know it was definitely junior high. And Christine couldn't come, but she could never really leave the house at that age, so I wasn't surprised. And then Sadie was like, yeah, I'll come, but Mariah and Rebecca and Michael were like telling me that they couldn't come, that they had other stuff to do, excuses and bullshit like that. So I was upset naturally, but then I was like, okay, you know, maybe this is a better chance to get to know Sadie, maybe we could become closer friends, stuff like that. And then a couple days, I think, before the movie, and I don't remember how we got into it, but I was talking about how, you know, I wish you guys could come and stuff, and Mariah was like, okay, I feel bad, and I was like, what? And she was like, Michael told me to keep it a secret, and me and Rebecca and Michael, me meaning Mariah, will go to see the Hunger Games in a different theater, I think, because we went to see it regular and we were going to go see it in 3D. And I was like, why? That's fucked up. Why don't you guys want to hang out with me? Like, I was the one who fucking invited you. And she was like, yeah, I know, Michael, and stuff like that. And of course, I was upset. I was personally offended. And I was so like stupid and loyal, and I'm conveying this to you as much as I can because I know now at this point in my life I would be like, fuck off to those people. But at the time I really wanted friends. I really cherished the few good times we had, and I was thinking they were willing to like overwrite the bad ones with the good ones. So I was like, can you talk to Michael and maybe we could all hang out together? I don't know why he doesn't want to be my friend and stuff. Or maybe, oh, okay, wait, I just figured out the timeline. Okay, this was either 7th or 8th grade because I don't want to say dating, but me and this kid, Larry, and we liked each other and stuff, which is a story for a whole nother time, which actually no, it won't be a story for another time. I'll tell it after this one. And Larry, you know, messaged Mariah because they liked each other once upon a time, and he was like, can you please, you know, invite my birth name with you guys because they're really upset and stuff like that. And then Mariah was convinced into it by Larry. And so I figured, great, we're all going together. I guess Larry wasn't coming, I don't know why. Then we get to the theater and I'm with Sadie, we're sitting down, we're waiting for them, and we find out that they're in the other theater, completely ignoring. And I text Larry, I'm like, oh, I'm so sad that you talked to them. And he was like, I did, but I don't know what happened. So I got up and I told Sadie I'd be right back. And I went to the other theater and I looked for them, and I guess they saw me because they were sitting really high back. Because as soon as I started coming up towards them, they like fucking hid really obviously. Like I think like Michael like threw his jacket over them or some shit. And I just remember being really, like, my feelings hurt, and even now when I look back I realize how fucked up that was. Like I think at the time I was like, oh, you know, they're just joking around me, they're just playing around me. No, that was fucked up what they did. And if you guys have friends like that, that's fucked up. That's not how friends treat each other. You know, sometimes it's better to not have friends at all than it is to have friends like that, because at least you don't have to get hurt and disappointed over and over again. So I stayed with them for 5 minutes and stuff, and then obviously I was like, I don't want to leave Sadie by herself, it's so fucked up. And they didn't want to hang out with Sadie, and I was like, why? I don't know. So I went back and I watched the rest of the movie with Sadie, and then by the time our movie ended, they were already gone. So now that I look back on it, that was fucked up. Yeah, I guess after we graduated junior high, we didn't really keep being friends, so there's that. But then, okay, so let me get into this one. There was this kid, Larry, and I had a big crush on him for like a year or two, and he was dating like other girls, I don't remember who, and then finally, I don't know how, but I think at some point he got convinced to consider me. and then when he actually started to like me back, and this was like just before Valentine's Day, I didn't like him anymore. So now I was like, fuck, because now this kid likes me and I don't like him. And Mariah was like, no, you have to go out with him because he's really cool and good looking and stuff like that, and you have to do it. And I was feeling pressured. So on Valentine's Day, I was like, fine, I'll go out with you. It's like the 3rd time I think that he asked. Our relationship was weird because we never saw each other, just in school, and this was like 7th or 8th grade. It was only in school, and we only kissed like once, I think, and it was just like a kiss. It wasn't anything special because I wasn't into him anymore. But I did go through my emo phase at that time because he was really emo. Like, he was really heavily emo. And I was going through that emo phase, I guess, sort of in part to him, and also because everybody seems to go through an emo phase in 7th grade. So I had like the choppy, you know, side bangs and like the glovette thingies and like the black and shit like that. And the heavy raccoon eye makeup, you know, stuff like that. And then that lasted maybe not even 2 months, because on April Fool's Day he broke up with me, and I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then he left, and I was like, yes. And Mariah was like, what happened? And I was like, he broke up with me. And Mariah was like, why are you happy? And I'm like, because I didn't have to do it myself. But one thing that did happen before Larry and I got into any involved relationship or anything like that was, I think this was like during the time when I was still liking him. He didn't like me yet, or maybe he did, but not as much. It was like maybe a month or 2 before. Mariah knew I was into him, and Mariah knew I was pursuing him and stuff like that. I don't know how I found this, but I think I was just going through her phone. Like, I think I was maybe bored. I know I used to play that little fucking brick game on her flip phone a lot of the time when we were younger. And I saw a text back and forth with Larry, and I was like, oh, were they like talking about me? Was she trying to put in a word or something? Open them, and I wish I didn't open them. Because I'm not gonna say what it was, but there were racy messages being distributed back and forth, and I'm not talking pictures. You know how you killed, I was gonna say kids and children. You children like to write your yaoi yuri fan fictions. Picture that, in a first-person point of view being directed as a text message back and forth with somebody else. Get what I mean without me having to come out and say it? Good. That's what was going on. And it was some like fucked up scripted shit, and I was like, what is this? And she was like, oh, we were just having fun. I was like, bitch, no you weren't. And I was always used to her doing fucked up shit like that. Like, she literally got all the boys, and even the boys that I was interested in, and I was like, can't you leave this one for me? And she was like, it's not my fault if he likes me better. And then a month later, and I'm in the library, he literally told her, I'm not into you, I'm into, you know, me. And that was like the greatest moment of my week at that time, because I was like, bitch. And there was a lot of other, you know, little relationships. And I say little relationships because now that I look back on it, we were so fucking young. We were like 10, 11, 12. We were like so young. But there was a lot of stuff like that that didn't involve me. There was a lot of nautical nonsense that took place within those years. And now that I look back on it, I definitely see that I should not have stood up for any of that shit. But like, it's weird. My perspective is really weird. Because as much shit as I went through in elementary/middle school, I still preferred it to high school. And I think the reason why is because I got to know the people in elementary and middle a lot more than I did in high school. I walked into high school having barely any friends, and I walked out barely having any friends. I walked in knowing Christine and like one other person that went to my high school, and then I walked out like knowing them but not really talking to them. You know, I walked in the same exact way that I walked out. So in a way I did prefer elementary/middle school because at least more happened. At least I got to know more people. At least I got to have more experiences. And I know people like high school, the best day of your life, you know, you get the yearbook, you get to go on trips, you get make relationships, you break relationships, you make friends. That didn't happen for me. I did prefer elementary/middle, and I did go to the dean's office once a week for getting into nonsense and trouble and chaos and shit like that. But I preferred it because it was more of an experience for me. It was more, you know, because I guess high school was more educational experience and middle and elementary school was more of a social experience. I mean, there were good times. There were good times. I don't mean to make this video so that I was hated throughout the whole school, because I wasn't hated. I was just picked on a lot. But it started to subside as I got to like 8th grade. And that was, yeah, obviously that's when I left, so I didn't really give a fuck anymore. But things got better, you know, they were chiller, stuff like that. I didn't really care if those friends were just using me or not, because I think I had other friends online that were like way better. And then high school, I didn't really have any friends. I had all my friends outside of high school, or outside of my classes or whatever. I made a couple friends throughout high school, but they didn't really last because then we would break classes and I wouldn't really see them anymore. I mean, I do regret not making more friends in high school that would last in person, but at the same time, we didn't really have common interests. Maybe if I had showed up for anime club more, this would have been able to happen, but I didn't a lot because I just wanted to go home and eat and sleep. If you're currently in middle, elementary, I mean, I don't think you're watching me in elementary school, but high school, any like public or private, whatever, schools that aren't college, stuff like that, I guess what I could say to you is be social. Because even if you get rejected, you at least tried, and it's not the end of the world if you get rejected, because you will get out of that grade eventually. You will get out of that school eventually. But if you don't get rejected, you get to get out with a friend or two, you know? So at least just try. The embarrassment that you suffer from a few seconds of rejection will go away sooner than you think. And again, leave your experiences down below and anything you went through. Chances are I don't remember a lot of the stuff that went through me, so hopefully I'll make a part 2 at some point in the future. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and peace.